Good morning, fifth graders. I'm reading to you chapter 8. Make sure that you are staying caught up. The book is getting really good. So here we go. Chapter 8, Fetterlings. Hunted. By what, I wondered. I couldn't hear anything. The forest was dead silent. We were the only things breathing or moving. I hoped it would stay that way. There's a bridge just up a ways that marks the edge of the thicket. Ayana whispered, "We'll cross it, run north as fast as we can, and then the other midfolk should be able to help us." "And if whoever is hunting us follows," I asked, "what then?" Ayana didn't look at me. "Don't let them follow. Got it?" Brer Fox's mangled ear twitched. He pawed at it, then noticed me watching. Lets me know when trouble's afoot, and it does. And it twitched again, then quivered, and then went flat. I guess that was the answer enough. What are we running from? I asked. "In the stories, this ain't nothing like the stories you've heard," Brer Fox said, "and we try to keep their names out of our mouths if at all possible. Seems like discussing them brings them around faster." With the cryptic comment, we started off. The river's just ahead. The call got passed back like a relay baton, and everyone who heard it found a new burst of energy. A dot of light pierced the gray-green stillness. The break in the forest grew as we sprinted to it like moths to a flame. If we could make it there, it felt like our troubles would. A rattling sound filled the forest like a bunch of chains swinging in the wind. I followed to look around, and Brer Fox snarled at me. "Keep moving." The rattling came again and again from everywhere all at once, behind us, from our left, from our right, like something was herding us onward. The sounds rolled in on top of each other. We all huffed along, wheezing and choking. "Quickly now, to the bridge." We burst out of the drowned forest into a clearing. There, the thick mud had dried to a dark, flaky crust like an old scab, and a layer of leaves covered the ground like a raggedy band-aid. We skipped to a stop. A rickety bridge made of split logs and woven vines dangled across a steep, rocky ravine. The largest river I'd ever seen surged along beneath it, roaring and carrying branches over sharp rocks and around twisty turns. A high-pitched scraping sound like nails on a chalkboard ripped through the air. I clapped my hands over my ears and winced, and Terrapin moaned. Brer Fox dropped to the ground and yipped in pain. The others reacted similarly. Even Ayana scrunched down like the sound hurt her. Only Gum Baby seemed unaffected. She ran over to each of us in turn, pushing with her tiny arms, trying to get us to move. She said something, but I couldn't hear her over the screeching. Finally, she gave up and ran to the bridge. Near the edge of the ravine, just before it dropped off to the hungry river below, she paused. Something in the leaves grabbed her attention, and she seemed transfixed by it. Frozen stiff, almost. With my ears still covered, I stumbled over and stopped short of Gum Baby in the steep drop-off behind her. "What's wrong?" I yelled. She didn't answer. Her body jerked, first left, then right, and I squinted. "Gum Baby, what are you doing?" "We need to—" Oh, my sweet peaches. At first, I thought it was a snake. An easy mistake, really. It wrapped itself around Gum Baby, and a trick of the dim light gave it a link pattern like a rattlesnake. But then I realized quite a few things at once. First, the snake was actually a chain-like creature with a metal shackle for a head. Second, it held Gum Baby fast, its cuffed head snapping around her neck like a collar. The long chain attached to it, coiling around her tiny wooden body. Third, more of those things were filling the tiny clearing. Fourth, my shorts were glowing. Green light grew brighter and brighter, filling the clearing and dashing away the shadows, and it took me a few seconds to understand that the light was coming from my pocket, from Eddie's journal. Soft moans floated up from the midfolk huddled behind me, but my attention stayed glued on Gum Baby's helpless struggles. She jerked left and right, but the chain thing only squeezed tighter. Brer Fox staggered forward out of the cluster into the middle of the clearing, his ears flat to his skull. He was still yards away from me and Gum Baby, too far to help, and he froze when he saw the chain creatures rising out of the grass, dangling from the trees and creeping along the ground. His hackles rose like needles on a porcupine, and he snared. Fetterlings. Fetter what? I shouted back. A type of iron monster. Two of the creatures, fetterlings, swayed from branches just off to my right near the edge of the ravine, and I got a good look at them. They ranged in size. The littlest, like the one that had trapped Gum Baby, only had the collar head. Their chain links were no longer than my thumb. The biggest ones had a collar much thicker than chains, and chain-like arms that ended in open manacles. See those pincer hands? Brer Fox said as the fetterlings' appendages clacked together. They used those to drag off their victims. I paled and my mouth went dry. Drag off? To their leader. I gulped. You mean them, Don't say it. Brer Fox dropped to all fours and called out instructions, slowly and carefully. One of them has Gum Baby, I blurted out. I hated the way my voice cracked with fear and the way everyone seemed to look at me when they heard it, even the monsters. But it was just the two of us, a boy and a doll. And you know what? It was scary. There, I said it. More fetterlings rose off the ground. We were trapped. Some blocked our paths to the bridge on the north side of the clearing, right where Gum Baby and I stood. Others crept through the grass on the east and west, and back by the forest edge behind us, across the clearing and near where Ayana had been bringing up the rear. More fetterlings swarmed out of the trees. Ayana, Brer Fox called. I'm thinking, she said, her voice filled with desperation. The fetterlings swayed back and forth as they slipped closer and closer. The group blocking the bridge rattled threateningly, tightening the trap. I prayed Ayana would come up with a plan soon. But as I looked back and our eyes met, I saw the despair in her face, the same expression she had worn back on the raft when we were above the bone ships. There were just too many adversaries. Brer Fox recognized her expressions as well. His posture relaxed. Suddenly he seemed so old, just a graying forest fox living out his final days, a fact he had made peace with. Make sure Tristan gets home safe, he said to her. He lifted his muzzle to the sky and a whining scream ripped through it from his throat. Then, before anyone could stop him, he threw himself at the group of fetterlings near the forest edge. No! Ayana and I screamed at once, and the night exploded into a frenzy. I don't think the fetterlings expected their prey to hunt them. Fox's attack took them by surprise, so he was able to dispatch several bigger monsters before they knew what they had hit them. His jaw clamped around one, his claws swiped at another, and it looked like a silver tornado whirled in a clearing as the metal monsters disintegrated into broken links and rust. But the fetterlings soon recovered and began to overwhelm him. Go! Brer Fox roared before he disappeared beneath a wiggling pile of iron monsters. The group of fetterlings blocked the bridge, swarmed past us to attack the threat, and Ayana jumped into action. Quickly now, she said to the midfolk, her voice alternating between a yell and a sob. To the bridge! Come on, Tristan! She ran ahead. I stomped my foot on the small fetterling holding Gum Baby, and it screeched in pain. I did it again, then a third time, driving my heel into the thin chain link just below the base of the collar head until it opened with a small click. Tristan, Gum Baby cried. I snatched her up along with Terrapin, who disappeared into his shell, put both of them in my hood, and sprinted to the bridge, covering the distance in a few steps, and skidded to a stop next to Ayana. The bridge wobbled and swayed under the midfolk's rushing feet and paws, and when everyone else had made it safely to the other side, I set Gum Baby and Terrapin down and gave them a nudge forward. Your turn, I said. Yips and howls echoed behind us, and I turned to see the fetterlings peeling themselves off the pile to creep toward the bridge. Big ones. They shook and rattled, their lower bodies slithering like snakes while their cuffs snapped and their collar heads clacked. A feeble gray paw emerged from the pile beneath them, struggling to evade their grasp. The green light from Eddie's journal still pulsed in my pocket. A memory unlocked itself in my mind. A hand extending from beneath a mangled school bus seat. The image hit me square in the chest. My hands trembled. I started breathing faster and faster. Just for a second, I could see Eddie reaching for me on the day of the accident, the day I failed to save him. Tristan, we have to go now, Tristan. Two voices echoed in my ear, one in the present, one in the past. Ayana's and a teacher's aide. Both wanted the same thing, for me to leave someone behind. Tristan, Ayana called, what are you doing? Move, but it was too late. Two fetterlings dashed forward, one to encircle my ankles while the other went for my wrists. I started to skip backward, but my foot hit something. A third fetterling had slithered and now through the leaves behind me and tripped me up. Tristan! I landed hard on my back, but immediately I rolled to my right, away from the fetterlings. A collar had snapped shut on the dust where my own head had been moments before. Eddie's journal kept glowing. I struggled to my feet and was just about to give Brer Fox the signal that I was coming to help when something slammed onto my left side. Ugh! The air abandoned my lungs. Click. The fetterling who had crashed into me snapped a cuff on my left hand. The cold iron bit into my wrist.